Alrighty, it's 6:30. We have scheduled a workshop for the Waterfront Overlay District improvements. So I will call this meeting to order. We will begin with a Pledge of Allegiance and go from there.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and I believe that I didn't mention that, if I didn't, that this meeting is on Tuesday, August 11, 2015, here in Council Chambers. Pledge of Allegiance we've done. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Chairman Colombo.
Here.
Member Steve O'Neill.
Here.
Member Nancy Britton.
Here.
Member Terrence Rowe.
Here.
City Attorney Joseph Public.
Here.
And City Manager Tom O'Neill.
Here.
Okay, we have an approval of council minutes from the CRA meeting of July 28, 2015. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Does anybody have any issues with it, or we all good? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Moving along, announcements. Mr. City Manager, sir. I'll swing it
I
to
have
you.
none at this time.
Okay. Mr. Public?
Nothing either.
Okay, chatty bunch. We go to comments from the general public. Now, considering one thing here, this is a single item agenda where there's going to be plenty of time to talk because it's a workshop. So I don't really see why we'd have comments other than that's the normal format. And, I guess if you had something to address, had something to do with the CRA other than this, but, I just don't see it, so we'll skip from that. Bring it up to the board here. Anybody have any comments they'd like to make at this point? Or we just get along with it?
Just real quick, I just want to let everybody know I have some flyers up there at the podium. I'm doing another Making Strides Against Breast Cancer fundraiser. Bingo, Elks, October 3rd. There's more information on the podium.
Okay. All right. Well, moving on to our agenda item number one, our single agenda item, which is discussion and public comment, Waterfront Overlay District improvements. We have some attachments here. I don't know how many of you folks have those attachments out there. It's basically was, this was presented at a previous meeting, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, please see city manager memo, so I'll go to you at this point, Tom.
The city clerk, I wanted to mention, the city clerk has 10 extra copies of the agenda, if anybody would like one. And that being said, the purpose of tonight's meeting is to hold a workshop and solicit public comment on future improvements to the Waterfront Overlay District. We discussed this matter and an attached lighting proposal in late May, early June. The direction of the CRA board was to schedule a meeting to solicit public comment that was scheduled for August 11 and discussed at that meeting. You'll see the letter that we sent to all property owners in the district. Also, you'll see a memorandum where I spoke to this matter at the CRA meeting scheduled in late May. We've got a number of items that you could discuss. We have a lighting proposal from Duke Energy that's on page 11 of the agenda. You've seen other ideas, if you will, and they're only ideas at this point, on potential improvements in the waterfront district, one-way street, the installation of ornamental lighting, the installation of landscaping, and the installation of public sidewalk and curb and gutter for drainage purposes. It's here, we don't need to make any final decisions, obviously, but direction would be appropriate. Also, if indeed you desire to tonight, you could discuss how you would prefer anything that you want to be paid for. There's a number of different funding possibilities. There is some money available in transportation impact fees that have been collected. There also is your ability to conduct a special assessment project under Chapter 170 of the Florida statutes. that can pay for either all or part of any construction costs, and the fairness of that speaks for itself in that any improvements that would be made in the district would be paid for by the property owners in the waterfront overlay area. So I did attach a copy of the Florida assessment rules and statutory requirements. I also have put some cut sheets in from Duke Energy on a fixture that I'm very familiar with. It's not the only fixture. You could select any other ones that you would choose from if indeed you desire to proceed with this. So at this point, I'll be quiet and let you solicit any comment that you want.
Well, again, this is, thank you very much. This is a workshop, which is less formal than a normal council meeting, and the basic purpose of a workshop is for us to gather information from you. So that's really what this is all about. Now, we can take it subject by subject. We could start out with the one Mr. O'Neill was just talking about, and people can speak on their opinion of that, and we can move on to other subjects as they come up, and suggestions on what y'all would like to see. I mean, that's basically what this is about. So, starting out on council, if anybody up here has anything to start with, do you want to start with the lighting subject, or is there any other direction you want to head right away? But I mean, that's the way I see it. This is not exactly a single item workshop. It kind
Right.
of covers
Let's
a
start
broad
with the
area.
lighting. I think that's an appropriate place to start. We got the information in the past from the Duke Energy, and we saw that what costs are involved and whatnot. And I personally would be in favor of doing a special assessment. This way, we could, give the waterfront district the upgrades it needs, and being able to have landowners pay and business owners pay over time. That's just a thought. We could throw some other ideas out.
It's hard to hear you, Nancy. Is your microphone on?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, I just gotta talk into it like this. Okay.
Well, you want to start with the lighting. We can start with the lighting. We have indicated 21 to 23,000 would be a partial cost. That would be basically the install cost. We're looking at, I believe it's anywhere from 13 to 17 of these particular lights.
That's correct.
Yeah. The monthly fee, and there are some examples in what we received of other cities like Treasure Island, et cetera, who have gone through a replacement of lights, whether that be an upgrade to a different type of light. I'm not sure, but we're talking, some similar costs when we look at what it is on a monthly type. Here it's projected at about $525 a month. So, you're looking at two different items. Obviously, the special assessment is brought forward as allowed in the Chapter 170 of the Florida statutes. And we've picked this as a starting point. Obviously, when we consider sidewalks and so forth, there has been some work done. But my first question would be, we have several cities surrounding us, Newport Richey, Dunedin, Clearwater, Treasure Island. There were examples given in here. Obviously the first question comes up is how to pay for this, because you've got, initial costs being that $23,000, which was indicated to us by Duke. But then again, you've got a figure of roughly $525 a month that has to be paid for as well. I think also we had talked way in the past about street lighting and costs, et cetera. And this was a discussion as a revenue item to help pay for these things. But we'll just open it up with that, because these are obviously the facts and figures that we've received. So it's good to go from that point.
Okay, well, I'd like to open it for public comment at this point, since this is a workshop and it's your opinions that we're here to get. So along with our own discussion, let me go out to,
Whoops.
and a shot rang out. That was, phew, yikes. Yeah.
Don't be surplus in that chair in the next month.
I just, That was pretty good. Okay, any comment from the public on this as to the types of lights, funding for lights, any aspect of it? Mr. Milner had his hand up first, and then Randy. Mr. Stout, we'll go over to you.
Good evening, Council. Rich Melton, 5342 Blue Point. I think it's imperative that we try and make some recommendations to Council to approve for going forward tonight, rather than this. Obviously, this is just a workshop, but let's take this a little more seriously and let's make some recommendations and let's act on those recommendations in a timely fashion. One of the ways that we could raise money other than that is to monetize Nick's Park to pay for these improvements. $10 station in there per person, per parking, or however you want to deem that necessary, would certainly equate to a substantial amount of money to make this so that it's not a drain on the businesses either. So this is actually people paying for it that actually use it. Similar to the expressway. You want to use the expressway, you pay for it. You want to use a boat ramp, you pay for it. We need to monetize our resources within the city. Thank you.
Chet Jasic, 5134 Miller Bayou Drive. Just question, is it going to be underground wiring for the streetlights, or is it going to be overhead wiring?
Underground.
Underground wiring, that's good, okay. And main thing is the cost, or the paying for. Certainly as a homeowner, I don't want to have to pay for keeping those lights lit and paying for putting those lights in. So hopefully you can come up with some way that the homeowners don't pay for that.
Mr. Masson? You guys can, you can do rock, scissors, if you want.
Carl Roth, 8031 Island Drive. I was hoping to hear a little bit more about the traffic routing and those types of things. I kind of look at street lighting as kind of the decorations on whatever we do. So the pedestrian thoroughfares and access to the businesses for traffic and pedestrians, having that determined would help me understand better the lighting situation, whether it's enough lighting or insufficient. But what jumped out for me, looking at the lighting, it didn't extend down to Catches. And we have the loop coming off the corner of Old Post, then it loops back. But it doesn't seem like we pick up the entire aspect of the waterfront overlay. Also concerned that we had talked about getting major access there via Grand, because that's the major access for both north-south bound US 19. And we're not extending that into there. We're not doing any road work. So I'm concerned if we made a commitment on something and we had to change it, that would just add more cost to it. So it would help me to understand what those other things are, so we're not reworking things as well.
Well, that's a good point. Mr. Masson?
Apologize for the glasses. Both of my corneas have apparently been ripped off. Dale Massett, 8221 Hayward Lane. I think my first question would be, Tom, how much fund reserves do we have? What do we have left in the CRA?
I'd have to verify that. I think we have reserves. There's a small amount because we've ended up spending those to balance the budget during the last 8 to 9 years. So there's a very small amount in the CRA.
Well, if that's the case, then I would have to agree with Mr. Melton. If we can't monetize it, which we've asked you to do from the Port Authority Board many times, we have to have more problems that are larger than this to fix. I would say infrastructures and things like that. The other questions Matthew asked me was, is it possible to make these solar lights?
I would say that's not possible. You can't generate enough by a solar cell to provide adequate lighting that would be adequate for pedestrians and street lighting in the area.
Yeah, I would think you're in a whole different realm of solar lighting at that point, and much more expensive fixtures, yeah.
The ladies next door to me that just bought Doris's old house have solar lights on the tops of each of their pilings, and they give off, I mean, all night, they're giving off plenty of light. I don't know how much you expect or need, but they said they were $85 a light. So I think it'd be worth looking into, and really we have to prioritize what we've got if we don't have much in reserve funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Breedlove.
Good evening. Bob Breedlove, 5143 Limestone Drive. In looking at the CRA and having visited that area recently, the lighting will go a long way toward personal safety of those walking, but sidewalks have got to be considered. The pedestrians are using the streets because there is no other alternative to walk from Seaside or from Hooters or from the cruise to wherever else they're going. And any discussion with lights should follow up with safety pathways for pedestrians to not interact with traffic. I was careful to drive through there, but I had 3 groups of people I had to literally stop and wait while they navigated the way down the path that's not there.
Thank you. Kristen?
Kristen Tonkin, 10220 Hilltop Drive, Newport Richey. I would like to follow up on the comment made by the gentleman regarding the footpath. People from the county planners that are taking over the Harbors Initiative suggested that in the meantime, before we can do anything with sidewalks, permanent sidewalks, and constructing the road to make it possibly a one-way because it is so narrow, we could put temporary footpath, which would consist of just crushed shell or stone or something of that matter to do things in phases. And then again, to answer Carl's question about the lighting and doing it in phases, this is like the first section of the phase that we would start. It would be with Treadway and Bridge and Cody, and then we would take it from there. And the solar power thing, I just spoke with Melanie Kendrick, which is a county planner. She's sitting over there in the room. She said that she's done solar, but solar has to be closer together. You have to have more of them, and that's the only problem from the get-go. But in the long run, obviously, it'll pay for itself.
Thank you. Sir in the back?
Hi, Michael Ferez, 5045 Waterside Drive. I'm fairly new to the waterfront thing. We've been following it for a while, obviously, but I've only been here for 2 years. And I know this has been an on-running project, to say the least. But it seems to me like maybe we should map out what's been done, what's changed in the overlay district compared to way it was laid out originally, and lay this out in a complete package so that we actually have an idea, to speaking to several different people's points, taking one piece of it and focusing on that one piece without knowing how it affects roadways and how it affects walking paths and what has changed in the business aspects down there and which way traffic patterns have changed since, 98 when the waterfront overlay was done. It seems to me like we should lay that out in a more conclusive manner, even if it means physically mapping it out on, I'll print you 2 4x8 panels that we can sit on the floor and put stick men on. I mean, whatever it takes for us to lay it out completely so that we can say, okay, this is what the golden plan is. This is what everybody wants to see, and we make the changes that match the current time and what has changed down there. Then we can look at it then we can take it a piece at a time. Then at that point we go, okay, well, this is what we want to do with the roads. How do the lights lay out? If this is what we want to do with footpaths, because this is how we want I think you work at traffic park, there's priorities that everything falls in, because you could put those lights in and then down the road go, that didn't work for the way we wanted to put the roads in, or that's not going to work perfectly. We go to maintenance and find out that doesn't work ideally for the way cars turn in and out. we had traffic pattern problems for the 4th of July. We had to close off roadways and change and funnel the way people moved. I think laying that out in the overlay, at least understanding it as kind of organic, but laying it out so that we can really look at what the eventual final look should be, then we can go through and say, okay, here's a project we can tackle with the money that's available. But if we lay it all out with costs associated with each phase of it, then we can look at what grants are available, look at what money's available. I think if you put it out in front of people, I think you'd get the business owners down there going, I put money behind changing this traffic pattern because it's going to make everyone funnel past my business. You know, and I think that's the only way that you make it worthwhile to the business owners is for them to see how it benefits their business. I mean, right now, if they look at their business plan and your lights don't change, like, you know, they brought up, it only covers a couple of roads, they're not even going to pay attention to this phase of the lighting because it doesn't affect their particular business. I think showing it as part of a grander plan and laying it out would do, I think, a better job of getting everybody to start to see. I've seen that in a bunch of towns where they put it up right out there, you know, in a full-on printed, beautiful, this is what we're heading toward, and everybody starts to get behind the idea. Right now, it's paper that everybody feels like has just been juggled.
Thank you very much.
To set the timer,
Phyllis?
Excuse me, Mayor, Vice Mayor, acting Mayor, do we really need to set the timer?
No, I would
Please.
say not. I was trying to wave you off on that one, too. Yeah, in a workshop, we don't hold to the 3-minute. Obviously, I would hope every speaker would not jeopardize the entire hour, but
Oh, you just said that at the right time.
it just, you know, and it just, it's somehow, Phyllis, my eyes just went that way. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
And
But
please-
yes, I don't think the 3-minute bell is necessary in this type of meeting.
Thank you.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Phyllis Gray, San Pebble. I didn't get this gentleman's name, the last one.
Michael Perez.
Michael Perez.
Perez? Okay.
Spell, please.
Ferraz. You have a secretary here.
A-E. Did you get that? Okay, good, Michael. Michael, I'm happy to meet you. I hope council has listened to what the gentleman said, because I think he makes the most sense of anything that has been coming to council about the waterfront. Going back to when the overlay district was done, we did have, we had PowerPoints, and that's how we saw and envisioned what the waterfront would look like. And that's what we should probably go back to, which is what this gentleman puts forward to council tonight. It makes the most sense. I don't know who came up with this beautiful light fixture. This looks like something somebody would hang in a garage. I think it's pretty awful, my opinion. Just a couple of comments. As you know, I'm from San Pebble. When we needed lighting, and yes, we are a private community, and we did not come to the city. We didn't go to the taxpayers, although we pay 66% of the tax of the city. We went to then Progress Energy, and we said to Progress Energy, we need more lights. And what can you come up with? And Progress Energy gave us the lights, which don't look like anything different from anybody else's lights, although we are the premier property in Pasco County, I might remind you. And we pay for it ourselves. We don't charge the taxpayers. We don't come to the city and ask for CRA money, which of course is taxpayers' money. We paid for it ourselves. And if you're going to do anything after you take this plan that Michael has brought to you, I think if you're going to do anything, then whoever benefits from these lights, and please God, I hope it's not this design, whoever benefits, and it's not the city that's going to benefit, it's those businesses that are going to benefit, And I would suggest that they have a special assessment, special taxing district, and let them pay for it. Doesn't benefit the city, doesn't bring anything to the city, doesn't give us any tax money. There's no business that I know of that's down on the waterfront that even has a City of Port Richey resident as its owner. So we don't get anything except the normal taxes like everybody else pays. So those are my opinions, and I'm hoping that this is not the end of it tonight, because this really should be the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. Oops, thank you, Ms. Gray. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of quick questions. We changed. and
Excuse
I-
me for a second. Tammy, when they come up again, do you need them to announce their name and address, or
Dale Massett, 8221 Hayward Lane.
just one of them for the record things?
When we changed the inflow on 19, both to the south and to the north, it radically changed the way almost everybody enters their homes. Is that appealable? I may have asked you before, but before we did go making plans for roads, can you answer that question? Can we appeal that from the DOT and ask them to let us enter where we used to enter instead of the south side going and making a UE to get back to where they're going? And same with us. Is that possible to take on the DEP?
I would defer that question to our city manager, but my gut answer is no. They basically just do what they do, and there is no appealing process. But, sir?
Well, we tried to do that on Cedar Lane, if you'll recall.
Right.
And in fact, the city council passed a resolution requesting that the DOT leave the median open at Cedar Lane. And they wouldn't agree based on safety reasons. So you never know, but I think it's highly unlikely that they would make any changes at this point.
Okay, well, I try to follow up on that. With the original waterfront plan, and Ms. Gray and I were the only ones sitting at that time, attempted to go vertical. And that was because we have very little land. And the idea, I think, and I don't remember the exact overlay, was to have restaurants below and some boutiques above and
Elevator parking.
Right.
Yeah.
And we did have at that time a grant for a 4-story parking lot. The Colaquitas, I understand, are out of business, or they have changed the business. Anyone?
They've sold.
Man?
Apparently they've sold the business.
Okay.
That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that they've sold the business, and there's new owners.
Which business?
The cruise ship.
Oh,
Okay. Has anybody made contact with them?
I have, from what I was told, it was by someone who was captaining one of their boats. He said that it had not changed hands. They changed a little bit of the name so that they didn't have some confusion that they were having, because it's not operating quite like it was before, and people were coming and expecting it to be the same thing, and the operation has changed a little bit as far as the size of the boat, so on and so forth. But he said the owners were the same.
Same, okay.
I believe they're heirs to the owner, but basically it's the same operation.
Well, I would say back in the day, I'm starting to sound older and older on it.
Sorry.
I went to Molly about selling the, all that big parking lot area there, and she was absolutely, we're not selling one parking lot, period, paragraph. But if their business is going down, and we can grab a grant, give them a part of a floor, there may be some wiggle room in there. And so I mean, I would suggest that what the gentleman said back here, let's get a real coherent plan that we think we can follow up on step by step. Obviously, with very low reserves, we can't do a whole lot. And I don't see that by $33,000 of lights is going to make us a destination. Thank you.
Thank you,
Brett.
sir.
Thank you for letting me speak twice. Uh-oh.
Sure, yeah. Like I said, this is a workshop. This is not like a normal meeting where you get one shot and.
Kristen Tonkin, 10220 Hilltop Drive, Newport Richey. The whole, what Ms. Gray might not understand or might kind of forget is that what the CRA dollars are for. CRA dollars is Community Investment Act. It's for community reinvestment. Our whole city, the whole perimeter of our city, meaning the whole radius of our small city, God bless you, is designated to receive these dollars because it was deemed blighted, the whole perimeter of our city. So what we have to do is be responsible and use these dollars and repair the blighted areas. You know, we've taken down homes, we've taken down mobile home parks, we have vacant areas, we have vacant businesses running all throughout our city. We have to find a focal point to start with. We feel that me and my constituents feel that the waterfront district is the focal point of Port Richey because it is a port. It's a commercial working waterfront that we actually could utilize and actually gain a lot more revenue. I agree with finding more parking solutions and so forth. As Dr. Masad just mentioned, with the Sun Cruz Casino people, perhaps taking part of their property away from them and using it for parking. But really, if you do any research, you will find out that using waterfront property anywhere for parking is actually not a very good idea because that property is worth a lot of money. Waterfront property is worth quite a lot of money. And we have a lot of it right there. We have probably, I don't know, just to take a bird's eye view of what waterfront park is, it's 12 acres. Just I can kind of surmise that there's probably like 30 other acres just south of that in the waterfront district. I'm not sure. I'm just surmising that. So take in consideration that the vacant areas could be someday built up to be boutiques, restaurants with normal walking sidewalks, lighting, not to mention it could be, because it's so close to the water, fisheries, education centers for oceanography, and so forth and so on. So it's not limited to any of that. This is a waterfront district, and it should be used as a waterfront district is. You can take and look at other cities that have done this in the past. Hollywood, Florida is a perfect example. It was like a ghost town with so much charm, old, decadent Art Deco buildings, and they fixed it up. They used their CRA dollars, and that's it. And it looks awesome. It's just brilliant what they've done. And if you just look at that as a model and take those ideas into consideration when you're trying to figure out what to do, just try to, just put a little bit mind thought behind things when you're. But the lighting is actually a good start. Lighting, sidewalks, road, there's a flow, investment comes in, it sees that there is something going on, people will invest, and then it'll start the investment cycle, and then it'll strengthen our economy, and that's what we're working towards.
Thank you. Mr. Jacek?
Chet Jacek, Miller Bayou Drive. I agree with Kristen. I think she's got good points. Also, Michael back there, I think that was his name. But lighting, that should be the last thing we think about. I'm agreeing with Mike back there. We need to have a plan on what the flow is gonna be, where's the sidewalk gonna be, where's the driveways gonna be in and out of these businesses. Until you do that, I think the last thing you talk about is lighting. I mean, walkways first to know where you're gonna put the diamond lights. You're gonna put lights someplace and not know where the sidewalks are gonna be, what the flow of the road's gonna be. So I very much agree with both of them. CRA dollars are for the blighted areas. One of the reasons I moved here 17 years ago was a newspaper article that I saw, and I still have it. I wish I brought it. Big picture, colored picture on the Times Union of Port Richey with all these nice boutiques. It's gonna be like a John's Pass, boardwalks, nice boutiques, nice restaurants. And that's why I bought the darn house here. And we keep talking about doing this stuff like that. I mean, I've been to talking about Waterfront Park. We got plans to do Waterfront Park. We're not doing anything with it. I mean, we made plans, we had workshops, we filled out surveys. We have a big plan for doing something, and we never did anything. I mean, we talk about it, and now we're shooting another, I think this is more important actually than Waterfront Park, what we're talking about. But we need to do a plan. I mean, plan everything ahead of time, do things in correct order. It's like putting a new road here on 19 and now digging it up and put sewer lines in. I mean, let's be reasonable and figure out what you're going to do in a reasonable order and the right way to do it. So anyways, I do agree with Kristen and Michael back there.
Okay.
Phil, it's Grace Sam Pebble. I think this is deja vu all over again. Because we're talking about the very thing that we talked about when the overlay district was created, when Dale and I did it, 1,000 years ago. Just to enlighten everybody, or maybe refresh memories for those people who were around, we had that beautiful piece of property that we were prepared to bid on for a parking garage, 4-story parking garage. We had $400,000 on the table. We had a grant, we had the plans. I knew the architect because he designed the parking garages out at the University of Central Florida, where my business was. We had everything in place until Molly, God rest her soul, walked into the meeting and put $1 million on the table. And that was the end of our parking garage, just in case anybody remembers that. We talk about using CRA money. Again, Dale and I go back to the start of CRA for this city. And it was used, yes, I'd never liked the idea that we were now going to be known as a blighted city, but when we studied the whole city in its entirety, we realized how blighted it was and how much in need the services were to the people that lived here that we were not providing. You talk about lighting, again, we have to go back to Michael's original plan, and let's go back to the overall design of the waterfront and not pick and choose, and because that's when you end up doing the wrong thing. We have to go back to what CRA was really all about. And one of the most important things, and we've mentioned it many times on council, is the flooding in the city. Now, to come out of San Pebble, until the city, and thank you, Pat, thank you, Tom O'Neill, city manager, for fixing right outside San Pebble, we could not leave the San Pebble gate because Bay Boulevard was flooded from side to side. Winslow Park, the fountain, completely overflowed across Bay Boulevard into the wall of the RV park. And even when Pat had the men come back and they did fix the problem, And we had that second heavy rain, but we did not flood. It's high and dry. Even with that, when you went up Bay Boulevard, the furthest you could go was Old Post Road. You couldn't go anyplace else. If you wanted to go to Walmart, you had to go all the way around, clear across 19 and up 19 to get to Walmart if you were going there. Flooding is a big problem in the city, and it needs to be addressed. And if there are if there is CRA money, you need to be looking at resolving those problems. Because to this day, tonight was the first night I came home that I was able to go directly up Washington and not have the barricade at the first street that belongs to us, which is Orange Blossom. The barricade had been removed. I mean, this is more serious than some lighting. Jump into lighting and then look at a plan later on down the road. So, people, you need to really think this through. Thank you.
And I would say we brought lighting up first simply because we had some paperwork on it. It was not intended by myself. I'm sure it wasn't by Mr. O'Neill either to say that was the first thing we should do. Let's talk about lighting. You all make very, very valid points. You're getting into master planning, which again costs money, and which is what you need really, like has been brought up and has been agreed to by many of the folks here, for, Waterfront Park, almost redoing the overlay district, which in and of itself is a massive project because a lot of it's written into code. It's actually a zoning district, so there's zoning issues involved. So, there's a lot involved into making any kind of major changes there. I tend to keep coming back to the issue that I usually do, and it's always a depressing issue to come back to, but it's kind of like, where's the money? We are not, sadly, we all know Key West. We all know Johns Pass. You brought up, I believe it was Hollywood, Florida. Most of those cities are much larger than us. Even Madeira Beach is not a huge city, but it's way bigger than we are. And they got a bigger budget, and they had bigger businesses, and they had essentially businesses that built out, Hubbard's, the Hubbard Corporation put a lot of money into the building and the boardwalk of that because it tied all their businesses together. So it's expensive. Every idea we have is expensive. Yeah. So money is money. Money is a big issue. And as we enter the budget season, I don't know how comfortable I am to committing any amount of money of any significance to anything until I'm absolutely sure where I am with the budget. That's me just speaking personally, but again, do we have any other comments, or come back up to council, make some comments too, because, okay, you go ahead. I want to give council, again, remember, this is a 1-hour meeting. It's scheduled to end at 6:30, or at 7:30 when the regular council meeting begins, and I'd like a little room between the two so Tammy can get set up and all that, so.
Melanie Kendrick, Office of Economic Growth, Pasco County. I just wanted to remind all council.
Did you bring any money?
Hey, I've got money.
Yeah, okay, cool. We love you
I
then.
can't get permission to spend it yet.
Okay.
One of the things that the county has been working with your staff members and council has been invited, and we've been sending updates to your work emails or to the city emails, is that we're taking the entire waterfront overlay district in addition to I think it's 10 acres where the trailer park was, and doing the work for you at no charge to the city. We're creating a pro forma analysis on those particular parcels, and we want to take it out and market it to private developers because it's not the place of the government to redevelop that entire area alone. It takes private investment to leverage our money. We are addressing everything that's within your zoning code, within your waterfront overlay district plans that were done probably about 10 years ago. More than that? Oh, wow. Hey, things don't change too much then.
Almost 20, yeah.
Yeah, to see what's marketable. In addition to that, we did receive another brownfield assessment grant that we're willing to work with the private development community if they need phase 1, phase 2 assessments done within the waterfront overlay district. We'll do that for you at no charge. So that's how the county is trying to partner with your staff members.
May
Oh,
I
that's-
may I
that's-
have a moment with her?
Please, yes, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Please.
Hello.
Hi, how are you again? You know, a couple years back, I worked with one of the local realtors on Grand Boulevard with some property there to bring private investors in, because I realized that city can't do it on their own. Some of the issues we had back then were each individual property was owned by several different people, and of course, you know, when somebody comes in of interest, everything goes up in price, right? Well, the fortunate part, and I'm saying this out loud so you can all pass this along, everything on Grand Boulevard, pretty much from Alex's Restaurant across the street, from south of Alex's Restaurant, all the way down to Flow Yoga, is up for sale and has a price tag on it. So it's an appropriate time. So I am contacting private individuals myself to see if we can have somebody come in and possibly do some, you know,
Joint venture?
something to that effect, because now the city owns the corner property where the trailer park was. At the time, we did not. And that was a suggestion that we got from council, we had a bunch of investors from a bunch of basketball players. And they came out of Michigan, if I recall correctly. And they actually did buy one property, and there was a woman in a wheelchair. They did buy that property because they had mentioned to her that they were going to, and they followed through with it, which was really nice, and she was able to move from there. But that property is available. It's open. It all has a price tag on now, and it's just perfect picking for somebody to come in and do something really fantastic. I don't want it to turn into what Newport Richey has, is something that's unfinished, that somebody comes in and starts something and doesn't finish. But just the fact that we have that property in the corner was a big deal, and that's what they suggested, that if we could at least have, as a city, own something there that would allow us to have a stake in the, we could offer that up and say, look, to an investor, we're going to give you this corner lot, or work some kind of deal with you, and then from there, maybe you could purchase and rebuild the other areas. But that's kind of, I just wanted to let you know that what's going on over there.
I appreciate that. One of the other comments, I just wanted to clarify something that Chris said earlier about the solar lights. You can't have much shade for those to work effectively either. Where we installed them on a bike path and on walking trails, it was full sun for most of the day. So when you go to look at that, you need to look, if you're going to look at that in the future, you need to make sure that the shade isn't going to bother anything. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Milner?
Rich Milton, 5342 Blue Point. One quick comment. I mean, I know there's been a lot of talk about a lot of planning, and the last thing I want to say is planning is important, but let's work the plan we've laid out so far. We can always add to it at a later date. Those changes, to redo that overlay plan is just a boatload of money that we do not have. We have plans in place. Let's actually do something. If we were Newport Richey, Nancy, I heard you say we have half projects, they have half projects. We have no projects because no decisions have been made. Let's focus on making the decisions that have already been made by previous years and 20 and 30 years of council, and let's get those projects started.
Costs money.
Then we will bring in the businesses and the community and the infrastructure to improve our community. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And once again, I will point out, I agree with you, but I will point out that Newport Richey is much larger than we are. So it's easy to say Newport Richey's doing this and we're that. We're a little bitty city compared to them, and they're a little bitty city compared to St. Petersburg, and the animals get bigger. But yeah, just pointing that out. Yeah, Tammy, we go back 3-minute clock because we're starting to run out of time here. I mean, I got time for a couple more people to speak. Oh, you're on your threesies now, Dale.
What's that? Am I running out? Okay. All I want to say, if this young lady will study the waterlay overlay plan we already have, like Rich said, look into that, go vertical. There's no other way to do anything down. If you put 2 more gill dogs down there, you're down to land. And I remember a guy telling me a long time ago, and hope this ends our meeting, can't do business from an empty cart.
Thank you. Okay, sir, I'll allow one more because I would like to bring it up to council and let council have one more chance at speaking before I adjourn this meeting.
Mike Perez, 5045 Waterside Drive. I wasn't suggesting redoing the entire plan. I was
Right,
just
right.
simply suggesting, let's get the plan that we've already spent all that money on and lay it out. The money's already there in those, the simple things. The lands, we've talked about streetscaping a dozen times in city council meetings. Just simply laying out a plan for how we'd like it to look all the way around would allow the business owners who own that property, even though it's a city easement at the edge of the road, to landscape it so that they match. And those business owners would do that. Having the business owners down there want their businesses to be better. They're gonna bring money to the table to do this if they see the city and all of the rest of the businesses following a solid plan. I mean, that's really, I think, where the problem is. Every time I hear someone talk about not wanting to put money in or developers talking about not wanting to come in, it's because it doesn't feel like there's a congruent, solid direction. It seems like they're concerned that it's not gonna, there's not enough follow through, on the city's behalf, on other residents' behalf, on other businesses' behalf. If we have a solid plan, there's developers out there chomping at the bit to buy property like that. It's waterfront. There's so little of it. But until they know for a fact that they're gonna get the cooperation from the city to get zoning changes, to get the pieces they need from each of the other departments, those developers are sketchy on spending that money somewhere where they haven't seen the development move forward. This plan's been in place, like you said, 20-something years. Developers are looking at this and going, well, why would, is that where we wanna throw our money if it's not gonna go? If they can't follow a plan they've had for 25 years, why would we wanna throw money into that spot? I think the key is to just lay out what we already have for a plan, and let's try to see who's interested in taking chunks of it on themselves. There are businesses that would take chunks of it. There's a dozen business people in this community right now that want that trailer park to do exactly what needs to be done, but because they're not sure exactly how that will work with the city and zoning and everything else, they're not willing to touch it. I mean, there's money on the table. She's bringing money to the table. There's a ton of people bringing money to the table. I think we just need to show all of the people looking at Little Port Richey right now, hey, look, we have a plan. This is what we want to do with the plan. Who wants to play? And I think it'll take off.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'd like to bring it back up to council now. I'm sure there's got to be some questions, comments, or opinions after what we've heard.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you all for the opinions because it's really refreshing to get them. Gives us some more ideas and what direction you all want to go in, because this is not our city, it's not our city, it's our city. And so hopefully some of the suggestions we'll be able to go forward with. I love the fact that the county wants to get involved and help us through with this. So I think it all sounds very positive. And my goal is to see whom we can bring in to take over some of these vacant properties. But if the stock market says anything about what's happening, maybe people will start investing in property again, because the stock market sure doesn't look that great. So.
Oh, I thought it was. It's been doing pretty well.
Steve?
You need to check those numbers again.
Down to something.
Anyway, look, I'll just say very few words. I first of all thank everybody for their comments. And I think as far as the catalyst and what Melody had to say from the county, folks, that's it. That's the only way this is going to happen. If you'll hang around for the next meeting, there's a few things that might be of interest too to most of you. But I think when we look at this particular look, I've got this one too. Here's the diagram of Waterfront Park. It's about a decade old. Have you folks seen anything more happen there? Probably not. Without some help, it's never going to get done. And I'd be very interested in, obviously working with the county, and this is costing us nothing. And thank you very much for coming up and being at our meeting as well. So, thank you.
And I agree. I appreciate everybody's input, and I think working with the county is a great thing. Anything that we can do together is a big benefit to us, because we are a small fish in a big pond, and to try to accomplish excuse me, some of the things we want to accomplish, it's going to really take some doing. As you know, I've heard a couple few $1 million worth of projects here easily mentioned, and that's just getting started. That's not finishing it. So that being said, and with the regular council meeting coming up in a few minutes, I'm going to adjourn this meeting, and we'll take a short 5-minute recess until Tammy can get everything reset over there, and we'll. Oh, sure. Go ahead.
I think as well that this was a very good meeting tonight, and certainly appreciate everyone's comments. I would suggest that we schedule another meeting on the same subject to continue perhaps some momentum and maybe get something done. We've got multiple meetings in September.
Yeah, I mean, September's loaded, yeah.
So it might be October. Does that early October sound good for the CRA?
We have an election. We have an election after the election.
Yeah,
Okay, after the
yeah,
election,
I'd say
later
after.
later in
Yeah,
October.
I'd say so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll schedule another meeting.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much for